Part 18. I can't even keep a little bit of pitiful self-esteem in my heart, after being forced by the emperor's next step. Heaven News carried the emperor's edict and said, Zhu Mingtang, the old prince of the Qing dynasty, is the remnant of the royal family of the old dynasty and should be punished. From now on, he will be named Shenming Bo. His son Zhu Shanyan and his daughter Zhu Mingfang immediately entered the palace to accompany the prince and princess. And the concubine to make them happy kneeled. After Xiao Beiji read out the will, he saw that the few people kneeling in front of him were all stunned, so he stepped forward, handed the king's holy decree to Zhu Mingtang with a smile on his face, and said with a smile, Shenming Bo to take the decree. Congratulations, the identity of the old prince in the past not only escaped with his life, but also had to be rewarded. Since the daimyo moved the capital, you are the first. Well, I am afraid that you are also the last prince of the old dynasty to bathe in the holy grace. Zhu Mingtang's whole body was already paralyzed on the ground. Pu Qiutai, who was kneeling behind him, finally maintained a trace of sanity at this time because he was familiar with Xiao Beiji. He knelt down and stepped forward a few steps, and said eagerly, Eunuch Pei, the emperor. Why did the emperor make such a will? Let Shanyan and Mingfang enter the palace, accompany the prince and princess, and take the concubine under the knees. What kind of bullshit justification is this? There has been no such decree since ancient times. Xiao Beiji thought to himself, Master Pu is angry today, right? Even the swear words popped out. He coughed and said with a slight smile, Master Pu is cautious. This word has reached the ears of others, saying that you are disrespectful to the holy decree, then it will also cause trouble. As for why the emperor made such a will, our family is just a eunuch, how can we possibly know? After he finished speaking, he stuffed the king's holy decree into Zhu Mingtang's arms, and then shook off the dust, and said to the eunuchs behind him, Okay, we have finished passing the will, let's go back to the palace. After speaking, he ignored Pu Qiutai's call from behind, and walked away. Qiutai, what can I do? Zhu Mingtang was completely confused at this time, staggered up from the ground, grabbed Pu Qiutai's arm and asked, I don't know. Pu Qiutai thought of the harem concubines he saw that day, and he was also confused for a while. If this pair of little children really fell into the hands of those concubines who were as beautiful as flowers and femme fatales, would they still be able to end up? Husband, the emperor. The emperor let Shanyan and Mingfang enter the palace, but they want to be hostages? The crown princess back then, but now she is just an ordinary woman. Luo Shi also stood up. She was even more frightened than the prince, only hugged a pair of children tightly, and refused to let go. Hostage? Zhu Mingtang laughed miserably. Don't be stupid. The emperor is now majestic in the world. Don't say that I am no different from a prisoner at this time, even if I have a little bit of my own power. How can I be taken by the emperor in his eyes? Where does he need my children as hostages? Then why did Shanyan and Mingfang enter the palace? As soon as Luo Shi heard her husband's words, she panicked even more, and tears fell like rain in an instant. While turning her head to look at Pu Qiutai, Master Pu, you can help us figure it out, you go and help us intercede. Doesn't the emperor rely on you very much? In this matter, we must first find out the emperor's intentions. Pu Qiutai has always put his position very right. He has always thought that for Xia Linxuan, he is just a stubborn male pet. The emperor put down the Baishan case. It is like a cat and a dog pleasing the owner. So the owner rewards a bone and a fish. But this time it involved the royal family of the previous dynasty, and he didn't think that he had the ability to influence Xia Linxuan at all. I I'm going to find Lord Chan. He's always been good at figuring out the holy will, maybe. It is not necessary to understand the mystery of this. After Pu Qiutai finished speaking, he said goodbye to Zhu Mingtang, turned around and took the carriage and went straight to Chan Mansion. Today, Chan Yanan is resting. Originally Pu Qiutai invited him to go to Zhu Mingtang together, but how could Chan Yanan be willing to associate with such a dangerous person who is destined to have no future in the past? The emperor wanted to use his mouth to pass the word to Pu Qiutai, but now it is not that, so he refused. Pu Qiutai also knows his virtue. The reason why he was invited, just didn't want to seem too close to Zhu Mingtang. He was not afraid that Xia Linxuan would be angry. But he was afraid that the emperor would eat flying vinegar again, and when the time came on the dragon bed, he didn't know what tricks to toss to ravage himself. If you can pull a shield, it will be better. Because of this, he knew that Chan Yanan was not in the government office today, so he came to the Chan mansion by himself, rushed directly into the inner room, dismissed the people, and told him what happened in the Zhu mansion today. The emperor finally acted, but he didn't expect it to be such a trick. It really deserves to be the emperor. This is to Qiutai know that there are tigers in the mountains and still prefer to go to Tiger Mountain. Chan Yanan sighed in his heart, but how dare he spoil Xia Linxuan's matter? Because he pretended to think about it hard, he shook his head and sighed. Now it seems that the emperor is going to kill them all. Kill them all? Pu Qiutai was so frightened that his voice was an octave higher, and he shook his head again and again. No. It's impossible. If you want to kill them all, you would have killed them a long time ago, so why wait until now? Chan Yanan glanced at him and said in a deep voice, Qiutai, do you dare to say that the whole family of Shenming Bo survived without the factor of your intercession? Pu Qiutai's face turned pale all of a sudden. Of course he knew very well that not only there was, but it was also a big factor. If it wasn't for the fact that month of cramming to make himself grow flesh and recover some vitality, the old prince's family would have been a ghost under the knife. Chan Yanan saw through him, and didn't say much, knocked his fingers on the table and said, moreover, the Daqing royal family has no blood. If the Shenming Bo family is killed again, it will inevitably make the people feel that the emperor is too ruthless. You must know that killing everything has always been a taboo for the monarch. Needless to say, the emperor just doesn't care about the world's scholars. And it's not so easy. Pu Qiutai also had to admit this, so he frowned and said, so, you think that the emperor brought those little children into the palace just to kill them all? In case something happened to those two children, isn't he afraid of the world's long mouths? There is a reward in front of you. Are you afraid that you won't be able to stop the mouths of the people? After this incident, who cares if the two children of the former prince will die unexpectedly in the harem? Chan Yanan shook his head and said with a wry smile, so, the emperor named Zhu Mingtang as a famous uncle. Just to block everyone's mouths. As for those two children, don't want to leave the palace alive. Pu Qiutai's body was suddenly aroused, and in a hurry. He grabbed Chan Yanan's arm and said in a lost voice, Brother Yanan, I know that you have always had a lot of ideas. You can help me think of a solution, Prince. They don't have any ability to resist anymore. How can we say that we have also been a former courtier, and we can't watch the only blood of the royal family disappear? Help? How can I help? Unless you can convince the emperor to change his mind. With all due respect, the emperor will not give you any room for negotiation in this matter. After Chan Yanan finished speaking, he stood up and said lightly, otherwise, you can contact the harem concubines. Know the specific owners who raised these two children, and be able to move them, with their protection, even if it is the emperor. if you want to attack these two children without leaving a trace. You have to be careful. However, it wasn't me who hit you, Qiutai. Do you think you can find such a righteous and kind concubine who is not afraid of imperial power? There is no need for Chan Yanan to say this. Pu Qiutai also knows that he can't find it at all. He fell into his chair in distraction and muttered, "Scream. Brother Yanan said so, this matter is. There is absolutely no room for recovery in this matter? There should be no room for recovery. It's not that I don't want to help, Qiutai. There's really no way." Chan Yanan sighed and picked up the teacup on the table. "This is the meaning of sending off guests. Your Majesty, the minister can only help you get here. As for whether Qiutai can comprehend and submit, it is really not something that the minister can control. The minister believes that the emperor must have a follow-up move, isn't it?" Walking on the street in despair, Pu Qiutai only felt that his limbs were cold. Young master. Young master. Shuangxi was originally driving the carriage to serve the two aunts and grandmothers of Honglian and Luliu to buy vegetables in the market, and the two palace maids entered the market. And his carriage was parked outside. But he didn't expect that he was looking around boredly and saw his master walking on the street like zombies, and immediately a tall man jumped up, stepped forward and grabbed Pu Qiutai and dragged him to the carriage. Shuangxi. Pu Qiutai sighed, coming out of Chan Yanan's house. He originally wanted to go to Zhu Mingtang's Shunming Bo's mansion, but after thinking about it, how could he bear to let Zhu Mingtang and his wife know about such cruel news? Unless you can come up with a solution yourself. In the end, Pu Qiutai could only repair one book, and ordered Shuangxi to send it to Shunming Bo's mansion. He really didn't have the face to face the old prince and princess who had high hopes for him. In the next few days, Pu Qiutai tried his best to save the two children who were brought into the palace. However, at such a time, who wants to tie himself to a broken car like the old prince that has no future at all? It's too late to hide. Only an upright person like Pu Qiutai would still be busy for the family whose name was the Earl who was actually a prisoner. People are warm and cold, and in just a few days, Pu Qiutai once again realized that the world is weak. In the end, Shen Chaoqing couldn't bear to see him running all day long, and whispered to him, "This kind of thing is in the hands of the emperor. You can only go to the emperor. If you don't ask the emperor, it's okay to ask Eunuch Bei to give you a word. It's useless to find someone else. I can't stand up for that family." Shen Chaoqing's refusal to come forward is not only because he is afraid of getting into trouble among so many courtiers. He is the only one who can make Pu Qiutai feel respectful from his heart, and he also understands Shen Chaoqing's helplessness if he does not come forward. That is the son of the enemy who killed his father. Why should people stand out for your family? Others regard loyalty as more important than filial piety, but people are good and filial piety first. And it would be good not to fall into the ground. However, Pu Qiutai didn't want to go to Xia Linxuan. Since that decree, Xia Linxuan has never summoned Pu Qiutai again. In fact, Pu Qiutai is looking forward to being summoned at this time, even if he is humiliated and ravaged, as long as he can deliver a few words to His Royal Highness the Crown Prince between the pillows. However, when he was looking forward to being called for the first time, there was no news from the palace. Pu Qiutai doesn't know if this is the emperor finally tired of playing with himself. Or is he waiting for him to take the initiative to ask for fun? So, he didn't move. Anyway, if the emperor is tired of playing with himself, it is useless to ask for it himself. But to bring humiliation on himself. If the emperor is waiting for him to take the initiative to ask for pleasure, I am afraid that he does not know what kind of quid pro quo is waiting for him. God knows that he is being forced by the faint monarch step by step, and he has been forced to the point of no retreat. However, as the saying goes, the world is unpredictable, and fate does not depend on human will. After autumn, Hibiscus and Honglian started to make up for Pu Qiutai. No, lunch was originally very full, but it was so full that Pu Qiutai walked around the courtyard outside for 5 or 6 laps, only to feel that the feeling of fullness subsided, and the two came over with a bowl of snake soup. Pu Qiutai is a southerner, and there is no rejection of northerners for snake soup, but he is full at this moment. Looking at this greasy and fragrant snake soup, where can he still be interested? I'm really full, I can't eat. He looked at Farong with a bitter face, and was thinking about whether it was appropriate to put out the master's score to make the two girls retreat. When he heard a heart-rending cry from the gate, Qiutai. Lord Pu, please save Shanyan and Mingfang. If they stay in the palace for another 2 days, they will die. Yes, my son. Pu Qiutai was startled, and quickly turned around, only to see Luo Shi rushing in from outside the gate and kneeling in front of him. And Zhu Mingtang trotted behind her. And when he saw her like this, he couldn't help but stomp his feet and said, Okay, you. Do you still have some demeanor? If Qiutai can help with this, do you think he will stand by and watch? Let's listen to what Qiutai has to say first. What's wrong? What happened? Pu Qiutai looked at Zhu Mingtang in amazement, and there was a bad premonition in his heart, which made his heart sink slowly. Qiutai. Zhu Mingtang only shouted 2 words, and the tears came down. The man who was more than 7 feet tall, but the tears couldn't be stopped, and he choked up. Someone from the palace came to the palace this evening and reprimanded me, saying that I was not strict with my goddaughter, and I inquired of him, and gave him money, and then only then did he find out. It turned out that Mingfang couldn't eat, saying that the food was unpalatable, and the result was, as a result, he was beaten with 20 boards. As soon as the words fell, Luo Shi also cried, Master Pu, although Mingfang and Shanyan used to be rich and noble days with fine clothes and jade food, but after more than a year of fleeing and seclusion, those 2 children are not unable to endure hardships, and when they are the most depressed, we even ate bran. And the 2 children didn't cry out bitterly. If it was really Mingfang who said that the food could not be eaten, then I'm afraid it's not as good as pig food. And even if they don't get killed, they will starve to death. Pu Qiutai's body was shaky. Farong hurriedly supported him, and the Honglian on the side frowned, and said impatiently, How can you be like this? Our young master has been busy with your family these days, and I don't know how many rolls of the eyes I have suffered. Before she finished speaking, she was glared at by Farong, so she pursed her mouth, but she stopped talking. Zhu Mingtang's face turned red. Who else could have more experience of the cold and warm world than him? However, he is a member of the royal family of the Qing dynasty, and he should be treated in the new dynasty. Even if he dies, he deserves it. But Pu Qiutai was affected by him suffering from this unwarranted disaster. For a while, what else could he say? Thinking about the expectations and slight complaints about the young people in front of him these days because of those rumors, he himself felt ashamed. Farong, change my clothes. I want to enter the palace. Pu Qiutai closed his eyes. In the end, he had to come to this point. In any case, he wanted to do something for the emperor of his homeland who had passed away, and he had always felt guilty and did it with all his strength. The emperor succeeded again. Farong smiled bitterly in her heart. How could she not know that Pu Qiutai was gone, which was equivalent to a sheep entering the tiger's mouth again? However, given 10 dares, she didn't dare to stop it. So, she accompanied Pu Qiutai and turned around and entered the house. Here, Honglian couldn't help but stomp her feet vigorously, and said to Zhu Mingtang and Luo Shi, who were already stunned, Okay, it's okay now, do you know how much our young master has done for you? He wants to take the initiative to enter the palace. This is the first time he has taken the initiative to enter the palace, breaking this bottom line, and from now on, he will have to let the emperor take and ask for it. Do you know? Take what you want. This word has clearly told Zhu Mingtang what kind of sacrifice Pu Qiutai wants to make for them. For a while, His Royal Highness the former Crown Prince's face turned pale. No one could understand Pu Qiutai's despair and pain better than him. The man who was once famous all over the world and strictly abided by etiquette, but at this time he wanted to become Xia Linxuan's crotch minister for them. This kind of humiliation. If he changed to himself, it was simply a torment of life and death. At this moment, Zhu Mingtang finally understood why Pu Qiutai refused to ask the emperor. Because he had never bowed his head to the young king, so he could still use the excuse of being forced to keep a little bit of pitiful self-esteem in his heart. However, today, he took the initiative to ask the emperor, and since then, there is no excuse for him to lick the pain of the palace, and since then, he is a male pet who takes the initiative to ask the emperor for his luck, and he is no longer the Pu Qiutai who is forced to be helpless, but still retains a little bit of style. Seeing Pu Qiutai appear in front of him in that luxurious dress, Zhu Mingtang's heart suddenly swelled with a huge unbearability. He grabbed the other party, and choked up, "Qiutai, don't go. People are warm and cold. I can still have a friend like you to work for me at this time, and my life is not in vain." Luo Shi was startled, and hurriedly pulled her husband's sleeve. Pu Qiutai saw this action, couldn't help but smile slightly bitterly, lowered his eyes and said, "If I go, maybe the two children will still have a glimmer of life. If I don't go, do you know? In less than a year, they may be tortured to death." Zhu Mingtang's eyelids jumped twice, and he suddenly smiled miserably, shook his head, and said, "What? Sooner or later, they won't be able to escape this death. So why bother to pay for your innocence?" "Innocence?" Pu Qiutai laughed miserably. "I've long since lost that thing." Then he looked at Zhu Mingtang, looked at the regret and sincerity in the other party's eyes, and suddenly stretched out his hand and patted him on the shoulder and said, "Your Highness doesn't have to worry about me. I don't know if I have this value. However, as long as it can be exchanged for the vitality of the two children, Qiutai is willing to. At any cost. His Royal Highness can die generously. And he doesn't even want the lives of his children, but I have already failed my homeland, and I have not repaid the grace of the Holy Lord. I can't watch the Daqing royal family not even have such a little blood left." This was the first time he called him the Crown Prince in front of Zhu Mingtang and called Emperor Jingren a saint, showing a resolute and irreversible momentum.